2,
One.
Alrighty. Well, I am way down here because I am not the focus of today's video nor stream at the moment. But hi, everybody. How's it going? If y'all are here and new to the channel, my name is Suris. I talk about politics and I use a VTuber avatar, which matters a little bit, I guess. Also, I have a guest today, and that guest is Marcy. Would you like to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about why you're over here today?
Hi, my name is Marcy. I'm kind of in the internet and the news because I was the first person arrested for using the wrong bathrooms just because I was a transgender person using a women's bathroom. And yeah, and I don't know, I think I might do some activism now. I might get into that. I don't know, I'm just sort of upset about everything. And I've been kind of influential in social media at Marcy Rank on Insta, TikTok, Twitter. I got combine them, it's 20K.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why I'm here. It's, because we have to fight against the tyranny of DeSantis. We need pluralism in our society. We need equality in our society. Yeah.
Well, that does beg a question. Can you share just a little bit about your journey and what led you to not only take a stand at the Florida Capitol, but I know that in the earlier interviews that you had, you described yourself as leaning, not actually having a real political affiliation, but kind of leaning a little more conservative, and that seems to have changed the more you've talked with people.
No, I wasn't really conservative. I just didn't really know the I wasn't really political, so I didn't know what label was the right one.
That's entirely fair.
Yeah. But yeah, I was just sort of, I don't know, I was really upset. I'm an emotional person. I'm not some intellectual, and I just sort of was slowly boiling, and I see how people are treated. And it's like that kid who died the other day, that girl who killed herself, and people were
the
dunking on
17-year-old.
her. Yeah, because she was trans. They were dunking on her, and that deeply bothers me. I want a world where people are treated with love and respect and dignity. I want dignity. And I don't know. A lot of times people look at things and they say, that's horrible, but what can I as one individual do? I think that's how a lot of people think of things. And, you can't do that much to be truthful, but you can give it your 100%. I didn't think this protest was going to blow up. I didn't think it was going to raise the awareness that it did. I didn't think I was going to be in the New York Post or the New York Times or the Huffington Post or the Independent or whatever. But I think I'm really glad that it did go that way. I'm glad that I actually have made somewhat of a change, and we need to fight and make more of a change. And we need to show people our humanity. We need to show them that we're human beings, and we have dignity and souls and hearts, and that, it's easy to hate people on the internet. And, that's how people get radicalized, is on the internet, because you can hate people on the internet and then you can hate people in real life.
You can dehumanize people here first because there's degrees of separation, and then suddenly when you go into real life, you're a little more primed to do it.
Yeah. And I think we just need to, I don't know, I feel like Sarah McBride is a good example of how just sort of, she didn't really cause a fuss. She was just living her life, and the sort of optics made Nancy Mace look bad, made transphobia look bad. And I think what we're fighting against is just raw hatred and cruelty. And so if we act with respect and with love, that'll drive them crazier than anything if we love them, but.
Oh, true. Anybody can get angry at somebody who's acting angry towards them, but the more you show up with baked cookies towards them, the harder it is for them to be legitimately upset for a long period of time. Obviously, it doesn't work with everybody, but I can definitely see the strategy working on a lot of people that it matters towards.
Yeah, and I think it'll also just sort of expose, because if we fight against it in a way that seems like a political issue, where it's oh, this is our political stance, we're always going to lose, or we're always going to tie.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens in American politics. Every contest is a tie in American politics. It doesn't actually reflect the issues. In fact, people's views on the issues reflects their party preferences, not the other way around, which is really a shame. But if we pitch as that, we're never going to get full trans rights. We need to pitch it and we need to show it as we're human beings and we're just going to live our lives and act with love towards others. And that will really highlight the hate, I think, that they have for us. Yeah.
So you mentioned people's individual views and beliefs. I actually want to know, how did your personal beliefs influence your decision to engage in protesting in this manner? For those who don't know specifically, it was going to the Florida Capitol and letting everybody know beforehand, including, the governor of Florida, saying, hey, by the way, I'm a trans woman. I'm going to be going into the Florida Capitol. I'm going to be using the restroom. I do not believe that y'all are bad people, so I do not believe y'all are going to do this horrible thing to me. And then they did the horrible thing to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I really like to see the light, for one. And when I originally did that, I got a lot of flack for me being like, saying I love them, and people call me this, but I'm not naive. I know how they act towards us. But I continue to believe. I continue to treat them, with respect and love, and turning the other cheek and sort of, like I hope. I believe in hope. Hope's a big thing for me. And so if against all odds, I hope. Yeah. A lot of my influence to do all of this was also a lot of my Catholic faith of like dignity for the persons, and that God, every child of God has value, and there's no child of God who's as lost or pointless or stupid or useless or whatever to not be worth loving, and treating with respect. People used to talk about the Christian right. I don't think there's such a Christian right anymore. I don't think the Christian right exists. What I mean by that is, people say, oh, but they hate transsexuals, oh, they hate gay marriage, or they hate blah 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 blah. But if you look at their rhetoric, it's, take Nala, for example, that porn star who became a Christian and turned away from pornography. Conservatives hate her. Conservatives absolutely hate her, because they've lost grace. The whole society's lost grace, but they've lost grace and they've lost forgiveness, and the same way they talk about, there was that guy who put that Wojak on where that girl jumped. Those people are sick. That's not something a church-going person would do. That's someone who's far removed from Christ. We need Christ to hold these people back, to sort of restrain them, because, this is the unchristian right. I think the right is just so evil right now, and it's super sad, because I want a world where the political parties don't hate minorities.
I'd prefer that world too. I will give a little pushback on that, just from my own personal experiences. So there is now obviously this is dealing with Protestantism as opposed to Catholicism, but like with it
is left wing.
Until you get to the Sedevacanists. Once you get to them, you get to
Sedevacanists are Catholic. If they reject certain authorities, that I don't know if they're technically excommunicated, but they're not technically Catholic anymore.
But remember that so from their perspective, anybody who follows the current pope is also not Catholic. It's the same thing that happens with a lot of Protestants, where you get the are you familiar with the NIFB as an example?
What's the NIFB?
So the NIFB are the New Independent Fundamental Baptists. They're led by a guy named Steven Anderson. He is very, very famous for having very, very hate-filled sermons that talk about how the gays need to be executed by the U.S. government. Like, he leans hard into it. But the NIFB exists because there was a split in the old independent fundamental Baptist movement where there was some sexual deviancy that was disavowed by one group or the other, and then there was a split as a result. Both groups believe that they are the true representation of Southern Baptist beliefs. At a certain point, I just go, I understand that none of y'all believe the others are the true Christians. I think the thing that matters most is what actual end result do your actions have in the world. And when I look at the IFB and the NFB, both of them, their actions are just evil. Like, I can't really have a word for it other than evil.
Yeah.
And
they are. Yeah.
And then when I look at Sedevacanists, which for the audience, people who don't know,
as someone who is a Catholic, Sedevacanists aren't Catholic. Like if you see any online Catholic forum, like, we complain about the Sedevacanists a lot. We don't like the Sedevacanists.
Understandable. From my time in religion when I was a Christian, I saw these fights happening in every single aspect of Christianity.
Yeah. Sedevacanists. Sorry, not to rail on Sedevacanists.
Yeah, you're good.
And like,
oh, by all means, rail on them. I have no problem with that.
There's not even that many Sedevacanists. They're really more present online, but I would imagine there's probably like 100,000 or something like that. It's really small. It's mainly an American thing. It's not, there's not like a lot of people in like, there's not a lot of people in Brazil who are like Sedevacante. It's really just,
We might need to explain to the audience what this group of people are, other than like ex-Catholics, not Catholics.
Yeah, they're just like these people who are like, the Pope isn't real. We have an anti-Pope, and that everything since Vatican II is fake. Yeah, and I understand why I have problems with Vatican II, because as much as I like some of the most of the reforms, they did create some liturgical problems, but I don't know, like, I'm down with Vatican II, like, just saying, oh yeah, I reject the authority of the Pope, like, definitionally you're not a papist.
Lemons and Leaves says, well, the Pope is a hologram. Now, a lot of it, from my understanding, and granted, as somebody who's not Catholic, my understanding was very centered around with their issues with the Pope comes down, like, it mostly boils down to the Pope is more progressive than we want him to be, therefore he's a fake Pope. Like, it almost all seems to center around, we don't like progressivism, therefore all of this religious conspiracy. Like, that seems to be what it is from the outside looking in to me.
Yeah, that's kind of it. It's a shame, because yeah, it's so bizarre to me that like there are some Sedevacantist families who like teach their kids to hate Francis because he likes the environment. It's just like bizarre to me.
And they're just like, don't you understand? We are not to be stewards. We are here to dominate the world. Like, I understand you can pull that. You can definitely pull that bit out of scripture. Also, shut up. Like,
yeah.
Real Thought says, wait, the Pope was woke? Was it listening too closely, or did they talk about Francis? So Francis was very progressive compared to the popes that came before him, and if you look at him compared to a lot of Southern Baptists, yeah, like by a measure of degrees, yes.
Yeah, I mean, he was talking about like, I don't know if you've seen, I don't know if you're familiar with like the fringe, like, every country has like the fringe, like Catholic, like, I don't know, I guess it Catholic Integralist Party or whatever. And like ours in America is called the American Solidarity Party. And like their policy is like direct wealth redistribution.
See, I'm on board with that. I'm a socialist. I'm good with that. Yeah, like 10 out of 10. That's based as fuck.
Yeah, I think it's super cool. I'm very much in favor of wealth redistribution. I'm anti-usury. Like, I'm anti like interest on loans, but that's a whole other thing. Yeah.
That wouldn't be the only. What was it? I think Islam actually has a an entire thing about being anti-interest in on loans as well from when I was studying that years ago. But that's a side thing that has nothing to do with the current conversation.
Yeah.
But so outside of the conversation about religion, back to the events of what happened. Can you kind of walk us through? Because we've read the news articles and everything, and obviously you've talked about it in other interviews. But for my audience, can you kind of walk us through the events of the day where you entered the Capitol and the arrest happened, and kind of what happened during the arrest?
Mm-hmm. So the day of, I was in this hotel in Florida because I was there for like spring break and stuff. And like packing up my bags, I was like super late. I originally wanted to go get like breakfast at this one place with really good eggs, but I decided I didn't have enough time. And I was like driving, and I had like texted one of my friends. I didn't really think anything was going to happen. I did text one of my friends though, like, get ready with me going to prison edition. And I didn't really think anything was going to happen, but I was just I was almost goofy about it because I really, and it's not even just because I believe they're benevolent. I don't really believe they're benevolent. I have hope. I don't believe they're benevolent, but I also just believe, I really was strongly believe nothing ever happens. So I was really surprised when
as somebody who has attended protests where things have happened, I love meeting people who started off with the nothing ever happens mentality, and then hearing the events that led to them understanding, oh shit, things happen.
Yeah, pretty much. And so I went there that day and I was just sort of assuming nothing was going to happen. And so I like drove like 5 hours because it was on my way home to my university. And it was, Tallahassee wasn't a stop. That was actually why I was willing to do the protest. So I was like, well, it's right on the way. Might as well do it while I'm there.
A convenient protest.
It was a very convenient protest. It wasn't even that much of like a detour. And so I was driving, then I got to the Capitol building and I parked my car. And it was just it all sort of felt like ominous, like a little bit. Like I was being goofy, but I was like, what if I do go to jail? Like, what if this happens to me? Yeah. And so I parked my car and then I walked to the Capitol building, which wasn't really that far. And then I went through like security, right? And they have all these people, these like, where it's like the metal detector ones or whatever.
Oh yeah, I've been in there.
And I was very careful with what possessions I took, because I had a friend who's done protests before, and she was like, don't even have like nail clippers or eyebrow pickers. I forget what they're called.
You don't want something that can be seen as a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Because
they'll like everything.
Oh yeah, when just as a quick aside, the group that I went with for the initial protest, when your arraignment was happening down there, one of the guys had a utility knife in his wallet, and we had to like hide that in bushes next to the Capitol building. That way he'd be, because like the parking in Tallahassee sucks. Everything is in one of like 2 parking garages, and it's always a decent walk away from wherever you're trying to go. So yeah, he was like, well, I have a cane, so I'm not going to walk into here with this and have them just confiscate it. So it's like, okay, cool, just hide it in this bush here, and then we'll all walk into the Capitol building together. We'll get the information we need, and then we'll all walk out together, and we'll find it again. We'll find it again in the bush, hopefully. Hopefully nobody steals it from this bush.
Yeah. Yeah. That's gotta be crazy though. Hiding a knife in a bush. That's kind of funny.
It's a way to make sure that you don't end up getting in trouble. Because like nobody's gonna let you walk into a Capitol building with a weapon. Nobody will.
I mean, it won't be the first time a bush has too many weapons, but anyway.
I think the last time was in 2008.
Yes, that was yeah. Yeah. So they scanned me and stuff, and then it was really busy. I also saw an anti-death penalty group on the way when I was walking right before I walked in, and I was like, they were like Catholics against the death penalty, and I was like, oh, I support your cause, and they're like, I love your scapular. I was like, thank you, because they could see it through my dress, because I was wearing this like white like fluffy dress, and so I walked in, did the scan, and then I walked through the main lobby, and there was actually LGBT protesters there for a different reason. And then I went up to the elevator, and there was a couple people in there, and I was just like sort of making awkward chit chat as I went up the floor. And then I got out, and then I turned the corner. So like the elevator's like right here, say. And then I like turned the corner, and then I went like a full loop around and walking down the hallways until I got to the hallway where the bathroom was. And it turns out it was like, I said it was across from room 222C. I was a little off. The maps on the website aren't accurate. Or they're not that accurate. It was hard to find maps of the Capitol building to know where the teleman was going because, like, I don't know. They don't really have that many it's hard to find a publicly available map of the Capitol because they don't want like people to like
to map it out and do shit. I mean, to be fair, like the Tallahassee Capitol is also, or the Capitol buildings, it's very centralized compared to other Capitol buildings I've gone to. It's because it's that like rotunda in the middle, and then the elevators go up to all the different areas with the balconies,
which is kind of nice.
Yeah, it's definitely laid out better than, say, the Atlanta Capitol one. If you ever end up coming to the Atlanta Capitol, the building here is awful. Nothing is centralized, and everything's marble flooring. So by the time you're done walking for about 2 hours in it, it is one of the most painful experiences on your knees. I lobbied there, and it is awful. It is genuinely awful.
Yeah, dang. Oh, wait, it's like really painful? That sucks.
It's if you've ever worked a job where you've had to walk on concrete for a long time, it's like that with even less give. Like marble flooring sucks to walk on.
Dang. Yeah. So I was walking through the hallway, and then I got to the place where I was supposed to be. I was like, oh, this is it. And then like a police officer came up to me and was like, are you Marcy Rankin? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, just inform me you cannot use the women's bathroom. Like, you'll get arrested. I'm like, okay.
Sorry, officer, can I at least take a piss before I go to jail?
Actually, later when I was in holding, before I was hauled off to the jail by the, I asked to use the bathroom. I had to use the bathroom, and then I was almost about to ask, "Hey, can I use the women's? Because I feel weird in the mez." And then I was like, "Oh fuck, no, I can't." It's crazy, man. But yeah, so they said you can't go in there. I'm like, oh, okay. I also said hi to a journalist who was there. Because I was trying to like. I didn't know anything. I didn't know what was going to happen to me. I didn't know if I'd be stuck in jail for a month or whatever. I don't know what the judge I was going to get. And so I was like bringing a journalist just in case, like, so someone would know what happened, Yeah,
but you don't want to get lost in the system.
Oh, no, you don't. And so I said hello to the journalist for like 10 seconds before I even talked to the cop. And then there was like a group of other people who I think were also police officers, but it was sort of unsure. Maybe they were lawmakers or something. And so I went into the women's bathroom, after they told me to not use the women's bathroom. And I was in there for about 30 seconds. I originally intended to pray the rosary, but because I didn't know if they were going to get me right away or whatever. And so I didn't have enough time for that. So I wanted to pee, but I actually just washed my hands, which in retrospect is better than if I peed, just for purely optics reasons of like, otherwise I feel like conservatives would be talking about my genitalia.
Yeah, you could just, you can literally just say, yeah, she went in to wash her hands and got arrested. Isn't that fucking stupid? Like, isn't that really dumb? Like, I feel like that's a lot of the messaging that we could be putting out. Like, hey, I have a question. Do you think it's fucking dumb to arrest somebody for washing their hands? Yeah, totally. Okay, y'all's people did that. Can we agree that was stupid? Thanks.
Yeah. but they're cutting waste. They're cutting waste by filling our overcrowded prisons.
Yeah.
People who
No, the
waste from.
spending any amount of time researching the prison industrial complex it disilludes you to a lot of what's supposed to be good about America. It really sucks.
Yeah, yeah. Jail really sucked. Obviously prison's not jail, but honestly, prisons get more funding from like groups to improve them. So honestly, like a Southern County jail is kind of worse than a lot of prisons. I don't know. That's
It
what I've heard.
it depends. So like for me, I got jailed in Paulding, and the Paulding County Jail, what they do is when you're not in population, you're just in the room where they have everybody who's been arrested that day as they try to figure out where the fuck they're going to put them. Every 15 minutes, they blast it with ice cold air randomly. And that it felt kind of like a form of torture, because I'm like, wow, nobody here is allowed to rest. We just have to sit here for hours doing nothing, and not one of us wants to actually speak to one another, because half the people are in here for a traffic violation, and the other half of the people are in here for like beating their wives. Like you have no. That was my experience of like some people came in because of traffic violations, which was what mine was. And then some people came in with a black eye because they had gotten in a fist fight with their wives. I was like, yeah, none of these people want to chat. None of them are happy.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad I didn't have a cellmate. Yeah. Although it was kind of isolating though, being alone. I don't know, because I was alone for like 25 hours, just in like a little box. And that was hard for me. It's sort of what solitary is, but I don't know. It wasn't like, I feel like solitary though, it's like all white walls and there's no chairs or anything. So I feel like it's different. And the lights are out, I think it's great. But so what was I saying? Oh yeah, so then they came into the bathroom. A female officer came into the bathroom, and the journalist was in the bathroom as well. She was just by the door, but I was like washing my hands. And the female officer came in and said, "You have to leave." And I say, "I refuse to leave." And then they, the irony is I kind of left right after that because they told me to come with them down to the station. Because they have like a little tiny station inside the Capitol building. It's not tiny, it's a nice station. But... So we went down the whole thing. And they put me in this conference room where I was sitting on a chair, and they were like doing all this paperwork and stuff. I was just kind of sitting there, and originally they were going to give me a notice to appear, but I would still be charged with the same thing. I would still be facing 11 months, and it honestly seemed like a cop. You know what I mean? It seemed like, oh, hey, well, I'm being real kind because they said you have to, in order to do a notice to appear, you have to, use the women's bathrooms again. It's one of those sort of stipulations.
Oh, it's one of those like, hey, we're gonna give you a damned if you do proposition here, that if you accept it, we can now use that to say, hey, look, see, this person knew what they were doing is wrong because they accepted this. It's one of those things. Yeah,
it's sort of like, it sort of reminds me in like 6th grade where if you did something wrong, you had like have detention where you wrote how sorry you were or whatever. And it was like, I kind of felt like that would be the easier out to not go to jail, but it felt like licking the boot, and I wouldn't lick the boot.
At that point, you're like, because the point of a protest like that is to show that this is not okay. And if you lick the boot in response, then everybody is going to have the story afterwards. See, even that person knows it's not okay. They wrote the message on the chalkboard.
Yeah. It's sad, It's messed up. The whole thing is messed up. It's like, it's all about sort of like you have to submit to the state of, like all this fuss was, I didn't write to the police officers. I wasn't like ratting myself out to the police, I wrote to people who wrote the law.
Yeah,
I
you wrote to the
them.
people responsible for it.
And they who wrote the law decided that they wanted the law enforced. You know? So they were there through the whole fucking step. They were the people who wanted they directly saw a problem with me living my life and wanted to imprison me. And that's so sad. You know, they want to imprison a group of people. Yeah. And so I was sitting in this conference chair and it was really awkward. And then they put me in handcuffs. And I was still sitting in the chair. Just kind of awkwardly. It was like an hour more. It's probably like 2 hours or something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't really know the exact time I got at the jail. The whole process took 25 hours. I could have been there for like 23 or something, technically, or something.
They like depriving you of the of the ability to see what time it is.
Yeah, they do. Because it makes them less accountable. But I was eventually taken in a van. I don't want to say they threw me in the back of the van because I actually liked the girl officer and the Italian boy officer who put me in the van just because, you know, I talked with them privately in the van, you know, and I was like, you guys know up, right? And they're like, yeah, but you shouldn't have done this. You don't want to have a misdemeanor on your record, you know, and they were...
I feel like even police officers, when they're in that situation, I feel like as kids, we all had to study the Nuremberg trials. Like, every single one of us did to some degree. So I think any police officer going like, yeah, I know this is wrong, but I'm doing my job. I don't care. You know it's wrong. That we full stop there. That's where we can full stop.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I guess I just say that to sort of highlight that even like the people who are like enforcing the laws or whatever are still like, oh, I don't feel so good about this. I feel a little fucking queasy about this.
Yeah, but they're still doing it. Their nausea isn't my problem. The people they imprison are.
Yeah, I think they just sort of had like a script in their mind of things they usually say of like, you know, I don't want, it's a shame you're breaking the law. It's like your first record. You shouldn't have done that, you know? And so I feel like I kind of broke the script, but I mean, I feel like people get numb to everything, you know, when it's their job.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah, people get numb to everything when it's their job. Like, I know people who work in hospice and, you know, the first day, you know, it's like, oh yeah, this is so horrifying and shocking. I don't know how those people have levity, you know, because they see all these other nurses like joking and having a normal day. But, you know, you see enough dead bodies, you stop giving a shit. You work in a morgue. It's like you can still joke around and have a fun time, you know?
Yeah, I think my biggest issue is that any police officer, if they look at that law and go, well, this is nightmarishly stupid, this is dumb, like they have the ability, and I would say from like a moral standpoint, I'd say they have the responsibility not to enforce laws like that, because we have plenty of laws on the books that simply don't get enforced. Like for Florida, there's a law in the book that says that you cannot cohabitate with somebody unless you're married to them, and that's a law that's basically been unenforceable for a very long time. But technically, you can call it in. You can at least make the attempt. It's cruel and stupid and nightmarish, but it's a law that's still there. Like, there's plenty of laws there's plenty of places that still have laws against anal sex. Can you imagine being... What's up?
Someone calls the police on Destiny.
Like, can you imagine being the person that calls that in? Hey, yeah, I think the guy in the house next to me is getting pegged. I don't know if that's true. Can you go check? Can you imagine being that person?
Yeah. But I think the anal sex laws are not constitutional according to the Supreme Court, right?
The thing is, though, is that they are still laws on the books. And so even if we like, as an example, in relation to your case, if we hit the point where the judges recognize, oh shit, this is unconstitutional. This is quite literally a violation of freedom of speech, freedom of expression, because your speech, your expression, who you are is a woman. That is who you are. That is part of your freedom to express that. Part of that is being able to use women's facilities. It should be a no-brainer in a court of law, but you're still going to have to go through the process. But once we get to that process, if somebody goes and says, hey, we're still going to try to enforce this thing, it didn't matter if it's constitutional or not. It matters that an officer is going to look at that and go, well, technically the book says, and it's just your first misdemeanor. It's such a shame that you decided to do that. Like, they're going to go through that whole script all over again.
Yeah. It's sad. Yeah. I don't know. That's the thing, though, is if something's ruled unconstitutional, like, I guess theoretically you could arrest, you're a police officer, you could get confused with the laws, arrest someone for anything. But
Yeah.
doesn't that the law from the books, kind of?
So it means that they'll sit on the books and they will technically be unenforceable, but all you need is one citizen to try to call it in, or try to do what, like, as an example, a thing that businesses will do when they're not allowed to fire somebody for being gay is they'll find some other reason to fire them, and the actual reason that they got in trouble was them being gay. So, as an example, despite the fact that in 2003, Lawrence v. Texas happened, and the Supreme Court said, yeah, sodomy laws are unconstitutional. For one, that doesn't do shit for the people who had been dealing with that shit since the 60s. Like, everybody who got in trouble at Stonewall still got in trouble at Stonewall. I'm sure they feel better 60 years down the road, but still. But the other factor that bothers me there is that somebody can go, oh, well, the law says this. Some person called it unconstitutional. Well, that doesn't matter. I'm going to find something else to get them on. The real reason I'm going after them is because they did something that I think is morally repugnant. So in this case, anal sex, and they'll find something else to go over somebody for. Oh no, you forgot to file your car insurance on time, and this would have been a slap on the wrist because you weren't driving right now, but we're gonna definitely escalate this a little bit. Why? Well, de jure we can't, but de facto we can. Like, that's kind of where I run into the issue of my issue is not whether or not these things end up being constitutional. It's the fact that it's a loaded gun somebody tried to aim at somebody at some point, and it can be aimed again, especially since we've seen from the Supreme Court, having Supreme Court protections like Lawrence v. Texas can be stripped away just by a Supreme Court going more conservative, because we saw that with Roe.
Yeah. I do think, I think a lot of people, when they talk about all of this stuff, they also, like, when people talk about how we need to change the police and how the police work and, like, totally, overhaul, in wake of, George Floyd and all those things that happened. I think a lot of people talk about funding, but I think we need to focus on police power to, like, I don't know. It's like, it's even like little things like, the speed limit thing. Theoretically, a cop could pull over someone for speeding at any speed, because it says the law, or at least the technical law in Chicago says, when someone's going too fast for conditions, but who determines what conditions are too fast for what? There's no template, there's no outline. And so that is like a little thing that police can use to sort of, just pull people over for no reason.
It lets them do a loophole.
Yeah, and there's so many loopholes where police have too much power of searching people and pulling people over, and just lots of stuff like that could be used for negative reasons, such as profiling or to punish them for other things. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely, when it comes to police reform, we definitely need to be doing a lot more, because as it stands right now, a police officer can simultaneously do these two contradictory things. One, well, technically you broke the law, and I've got to follow the law. I have to make sure that you're punished for it. It's technically my job. But at the same time, there's several instances where police are able to just ignore laws. Like when it comes to a speed limit, when it comes to running red lights, when it comes to stuff like that, they can just kind of ignore that stuff when they want to. And we've had plenty of legal cases where how far should police immunity go? It feels really contradictory to have the concept of police immunity and also that one police officer going, this is morally wrong, but technically I've got to do my job. Like how else do you describe to somebody that police are a different class of people?
I think we should have sort of like what they have for nurses, where, you know, some nurse has a moral problem with working on some medical case, like, you know, something with bioethics or something.
Mm.
She can sort of step out and say, hey, you know, it's my right to withdraw and not perform this procedure. You know what I mean? And it's sort of like that. I wish we had that for cops, where if they believe sort of conscientious objectors, I wish we had that for police officers. We're not just the sort of the sheriff who brings things and brings charges of the DA or whatever, but if we could have a cop who's being ordered around by another cop to be able to say, no, I don't feel right doing this, and have them have a right to do that, as long as they're not just like saying, no, I won't bring any charges for murder or anything ever, you know, obviously. But like, you know, if someone has a legitimate moral complaint where they don't feel right enforcing something, I feel like they should have more. I think police officers should have more of an ability to sort of, you know, like the people, I don't even know if the people who brought me to the jail had the ability to say no, you know, without losing their jobs. And that's kind of crazy to me, that you just have to sort of violate your conscience or lose your job. Like, that whole system is kind of messed up.
It is messed up. I feel like that should be a are we the baddies moment for practically anyone, though. Like, if you go, hey, if I don't do this thing that my morals are completely against, I'll lose my job. That should be that should be the moment right there where you go, should I actually be employed by these people? Are these the baddies? Am I in league with the baddies, actually?
Yeah, for real.
Like, just as an example from my life, I used to work in not sales, but technically tech support. It was tech support as a mask for recruitment for Lyft, and it's wild that exists as a job. But I was part of a company called Windy City, and the Windy City call center outsourced a lot of its workers.
Wait, Windy, like Chicago?
Yes, but they outsource their workers across the country.
Okay.
So
dang, they're importing workers from Texas and California and New York to do Texas. This is the problem with all the importing of labor, man. This is why we need to have tariffs. We need to have tariffs on states that aren't Illinois. We need Illinois nationalism.
Just hyper nationalism for whatever state you happen to currently be in.
For real. They're nationalists.
But there was a woman who was on the phone. Because you as a call center rep, you'd basically get auto dialed into somebody's call, and this person was waiting in the hospital because her brother was in ICU, and she was obviously distressed. And my script said that I had to talk to her until she hung up the phone. And after a few minutes, I just went, "This doesn't feel right. This feels like grabbing somebody when they're at their lowest point. This feels manipulative as hell. This is a person who's in a state of mental disarray. She does not need effectively a salesperson / recruitment officer. She doesn't need this person right now." So I hung up the phone. Unfortunately, at Windy City, every single call is recorded, and your quality assurance representative, who's effectively your boss, will get in contact with you, as they did me. They got in contact with me via the work email and said, "Hey, we noticed that you hung up on a potential client. Why did you do that?" And I gave my reasoning. I said, "Hey, this definitely did not speak well to my morals. That seemed manipulative and like something I didn't want to do." And they said, "That shouldn't cause a moral problem for you." And I'm just like, you don't get to determine what causes a moral problem for me. ma'am and or sir and or both. You don't get to do that. That's your morals and my morals may not line up.
Yeah, that's one of the problems with capitalism is, it's like, I heard Bo Burnham the other day was talking about, I mean, actually, it's not, he wasn't talking about it the other day, but it was like an old clip from like 2019.
Yeah.
Where he was like talking about the problems with technology and the problems with a lot of these big tech companies is, for businesses to expand in the past, they would have to like go conquer like new lands or like, introduce a business to new people, or like it would be expanding the market.
They'd have to provide jobs to more people.
Yeah. But the point is how they used to expand was expanding the markets. But now if you're Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, or YouTube, your market's already hit like the world, And so your investors are going to want to see a return. They're going to want to see more profits. They're going to want to see more revenue. So how do you do that? Like for real? Like once you hit like market capitalization, then they start scrambling for more and more watch time, and they just want you to spend every single hour on their stuff and just take away your life. And it's super sad,
And then they start introducing, oh, well, we're going to have more advertisers on the platform, so you're going to see more ads and videos. Oh, well, you're going to have to get YouTube Premium in order to experience this. Oh, we're going to introduce more tiers to that system, so there's going to be one where you've bought into it, but you still get the ads. That's what Disney Plus and Netflix ended up doing. Like, oh, you could buy into this tiered system now, spend even more money on our service to get what you used to get, or you could get this with advertisements. It's just a couple more dollars to avoid the advertisements. No promise on what we'll offer in 2 years from now, but
Yeah, it's like the whole. Sorry, I'm like trying to plug in my phone.
You're good.
It's like with stuff like Netflix has gotten so much less stuff. It used to be like the only kid on the block, and they used to have so much stuff. Now they have almost nothing, and they charge like their rates now for the ad rate is like more than the non-ad rate like a bunch of years ago. Like it's gotten so expensive. It's gotten like television expensive.
Yep.
And it's like it makes me realize I don't even need to watch that many shows. Like I just need to buy a couple shows, like, because I just get invested in shows. I just need to buy them, like, legit. And that's all for me. Like, I don't need some, like, big sort of, like, investment of, like, oh, I want to pay. It's not even an investment. 'Cause, it's like you paid these people so much a month for what? What did they give to you? What do they do for you? Like, practically, like, nothing. They do nothing. It's like they give you stuff that, like, you could get a subscription to Peacock, and the main thing there is The Office, and people buy subscriptions with The Office, but you could just buy The Office, and I think it's very dystopian when these new companies aren't selling, like, they're not actually selling the original show anymore. You can't buy that anymore. You can't buy DVDs, which is really messed up to me.
They're selling you access to your memories.
Yeah, they're selling you, like, yeah, we need to go back to physical media and buying copies of stuff, because where we are now is just so dystopian. But to be fair, maybe we should have never even had, like, television in the first place. Like, the main draw of television is you get to see all the stuff as, television used to be an event as stuff happens, but you don't get to really do that anymore. You know what I mean? It's like television isn't an event now, And when it is an event like Stranger Things, through Netflix or whatever, it's still like, I don't know. When it is an event like that, it's still like, you can just get it. It all comes out at once, And so, whereas with the TV in the past, you used to be waiting for DVDs to come out. Now it's like, don't wait for anything. There's no waiting. You can just have it all at once and have maximum. You can just have it all downloaded, and it's crazy.
The idea now with technology seems to be treat media like potato chips. Person can have as much of it as they want, and they can consume as much of it as they have. Whatever message they took from it doesn't really matter. Whatever experience they took from it doesn't really matter. And whatever planning needed to happen to make sure that it was there didn't really matter. All that matters is that you've consumed more of it. Whereas in the past, and this is, I like the idea of on-demand video because I like being able to grab something on my schedule as opposed to being having to adhere to another person's schedule. But at the same time, I agree there is definitely something far more wholesome about, oh, that new show that all of my friends are watching is coming on. The show just dropped on, it just dropped its episode. We're all watching it at the same time, and then we get to have a phone conversation with each other about it afterwards. Like, I remember doing that when I was a kid. Family Guy had just moved onto Adult Swim, and right before that part of the block, for some reason, there was also Justice League. So I remember me and my friend Andy would be on the phone with each other, and then Justice League would come on and go, okay, we're gonna hop off the phone, watch the episode, then we'll talk about the episode in a second. Then Family Guy would come on and go, okay, we're gonna hop off the phone, watch the episode. Okay, let's hop back on the phone. Let's talk about what we just watched. Like, you don't really get that anymore.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's something that was worth preserving, I don't entirely know. But especially with a lot of the new models for Netflix and other shows being the second screen model, if you've heard about that.
Yes.
Yeah,
I have.
It feels like it's even more of that. We want this to be just a thing you have on in the background. Consume as much of it as you can. We don't care what you take from it. We just care that you take.
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the big problems with Netflix. Is it's Netflix and all the getting HBO and Netflix and Disney Plus and Hulu and all these things. Buying them all only makes sense if you not only watch a lot of television, but you watch a variety of television. If you just watch The Sopranos, you don't need to buy HBO. You should just buy The Sopranos. If you just watch The Office, you just need to buy The Office. If you just watch I guess you can't buy Stranger Things, and that's the point.
But that's a problem, because what happens when that licensing runs out and nobody picks it back up? That happened with 28 Days Later. Nobody picked up the licensing for that for ages, and so it wasn't available anywhere, and nobody had DVD players. So just this piece of almost lost media just kind of floated around for years.
That's crazy. Yeah. Well, and it's messed up. I think about it. It's so crazy. Yeah, like, you used to be able to own stuff, and like, unless you watch like a new movie or new show every 3 days, it just doesn't make sense. Like, if you have a couple services, it just doesn't make sense to have them unless you watch a couple, like a new movie every 3 days, right? Because like you're paying for a new movie. You're paying to buy a new movie. But do you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm making sense.
Oh, you definitely are making sense. I just, something just came to mind in response to that, though. Somebody in my chat mentioned that they actually copied Stranger Things onto their VHS, which is wild. That's so
like aesthetic. Stranger Things.
It definitely belongs on a VHS. Like, that makes perfect sense. But there is something weird that pops in my mind. It's the fact that once upon a time it was considered normal to record media that you were watching with something like TiVo so that you could watch it again later. That was considered normal. Now, if you're watching Netflix on your computer and you try to record it or screen grab it or anything, they have a bunch of little bits of software in their program now that makes it to where it blanks out anything that you try to record from it. I'm just like,
yeah,
that's so weird that you're doing that. Is there really not that much difference between Netflix as if Netflix were a TV channel and me recording something on TiVo? That really shouldn't be that different, and yet we live in a dystopian future.
It's messed up. That's why, I won't totally speak for myself here.
Yeah, but look, all I'm going to say is I'm a One Piece fan, but that has nothing to do with my ethics. That's
why a lot of people pirate, totally not me, but a lot of people pirate things nowadays on the internet, and they
do
download stuff. And
it's wild with how expensive things have gotten that people have felt the need to resort to piracy. It's so weird.
Oh yeah, And it doesn't even feel like, yeah, it just feels like they're scamming you a lot of times. I don't know. I don't like streaming. Well, I do like, I have such mixed feelings, you know? I
Mhm.
mean, do you think better than the TV setup? What do you think about that?
So I'm of two minds. There's pros and cons to it. My
Mm.
problem is it's gonna always just kind of round back to capitalism. But
Yeah.
so like the Netflix model exists because a group of tech investors decided they wanted to throw a bunch of money at a problem. And the problem to be solved was, well, why can't TV be on my schedule? Okay. Netflix is there to make sure that that can happen. That was the old model for Netflix, and it was like you said, it was the only kid on the block. The problem
Mm.
with that investment mentality is eventually that money dries up and you have to turn a profit somewhere. So now Netflix is trying to turn a profit by licensing a bunch of shows onto its own server and having incentives to be with Netflix as opposed to somebody else because everybody else realized there was money in this pot.
Yeah.
But
Well, it also wasn't just profitable originally because of investors. It was because, like, the movie corporations saw this as, oh, not many people are watching. You know, this isn't a big thing. We can license it to them. It's not a big deal. It's just like some online library.
yeah, but
You know,
now
people,
it's where everybody gets their things.
yeah. And so now they're like charging big bucks. Yeah.
Yep, it's a problem that gets worse and worse as you go, as everybody around the idea gets more and more greedy. In theory, I like the concept of having an online library where everybody can have access to
Mhm.
media that has been shown on TV or in the movie theaters. In theory, I'm okay with that. I don't think that the Netflix model is the way to go because this is coming from back when I was a kid and you had to watch TV on TV, but when the internet was getting the not really when the internet was new, but when the internet was getting enough bandwidth to host things like video back in 2004, 2005. I remember
Mhm.
finding websites that basically operated as giant streaming platforms. They had a ton of different movies on them that you could watch,
Mhm.
and you wouldn't be able to guarantee the quality of the movie that you would watch on there. And for some movies, like say Dawn of the Dead, you wouldn't be able to guarantee which country the movie came from because that movie has a different soundtrack in 3 different countries. And I didn't
Yeah.
I didn't know that as a kid. So when I watched one version of it and then that version went down and another version came up and I watched it again, I went, this isn't the movie I saw. Why does it sound different? It's because there's a different soundtrack in a different environment. That concept was lost on me, which is weird as a Sonic the Hedgehog fan. But
Hmm.
the I think having access to that kind of library is definitely good. I think that the Netflix model and the side effects of the Netflix model, where we have Netflix, HBO Max, whatever the fuck they're calling themselves this week, Disney Plus, and Peacock, and God, what other streaming services are there? Amazon Prime, and just everything else, all in these different buckets. I don't think that's the answer. I think
Yeah.
I think subscription models have never been the answer to this problem and should never be the answer to this problem.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I feel like Netflix and streaming feels like fast pass. And then initially it was like a miracle and everyone was hailing it as a miracle. And
Hmm.
then people want to change it and make it worse. And it just kept getting worse until like fast pass is now why rides take so long, you
Hmm.
know, and it made things worse. And in the same way fast pass is like that, I feel like Netflix, it just sort of descended. And I feel like, you know, would be interesting if there was some company that did a contract with all the different streaming services where you get to like pick your streaming service, you know? So like if you like one show, because people aren't uniform. And so it would actually go back to when people are sort of paying for stuff. But if you like, you pick what shows you want to be able to watch this month and you get like 10 or whatever, or you get like
Hmm.
10 movie shows. And that way, like, because a lot of people's likes don't fit neatly in a streaming service, but like each streaming service would get like a percentage of your monthly,
So they'd
you
have
know?
it would be like a bundle You technically have everything bundled, but you're limited to what you're watching month to month based on what you pick.
Yeah, like you get to pick from anywhere, and maybe not anywhere, maybe not, some companies won't sign with them, but you only get so much per month. And as I'm saying this, I'm realizing it's kind of just like TV, but different. But
I was about to say, you just described the concept of a TV channel.
Yeah, I guess a little, but like, you only get, like, for example, if you want to watch The Office and The Sopranos and you want to watch Star Wars, those are all different channels. But maybe that's all you want to watch, so you could only buy those shows, but you would like have. Then why
I know what you're suggesting. I know exactly what you're suggesting, and we have to look back into the past to find it again.
Yeah.
You've described Blockbuster.
Oh, yes.
You've described Blockbuster. We need to go back. We have to go back to the past.
You gotta go back to Blockbuster. I remember one time I had a scammer, and I just watched the James Beach stuff about scammers. I don't know if you've seen his little comedy bits about scammers.
I don't think I have.
It's really funny, but I got a scam email, and so it seemed like there was a person behind it. So they asked for my identification, and I like sent them like my dad's old Blockbuster card and like some Disney World ticket from 1980, and like just like I would like make up the dumbest shit, like I wanted to be paid in licorice or whatever. Like,
I wish I was paid in layers.
It would be a great time to be paid in licorice. You know what's good? What's good shit? Like, ask the chat. Do we get a lot of chats? How many viewers do we have?
We've got 102 viewers right now.
Wow, that's a lot of people. Hello, world. But ask the chat if they've ever had watermelon taffy. It is thebomb.com. Also, 100 people listening. Follow my TikTok and Instagram at MarcyRentgen. MarcyRentgen. Same with Twitter. Yeah, like, ask them if they've had watermelon taffy, because it's like so fucking good. Have you had it, Suris?
I have had watermelon taffy. If you've had saltwater taffy, I've had watermelon taffy in a box of saltwater taffy.
It's so good, right?
Oh yeah, but it's not the best watermelon thing. The best watermelon thing are the watermelon Sour Patch Kids.
I never had them. What are they like?
So have you had a Sour Patch Kid before?
Oh yeah, I love Sour Patch Kids.
Okay, cool. They taste nothing like Sour Patch Kids. It's weird. The watermelon Sour Patch Kids.
Because watermelon taffy doesn't taste like watermelon, but does the watermelon
absolutely not. The watermelon Sour Patch Kids taste nothing like watermelon either.
Right.
It's hard to describe the taste. It's like how grape flavored things never taste like grape. They just kind of taste like the idea of purple. I'm gonna disagree. Okay.
Some of the flavor candies. I watched videos on the history of candy from JJ McCullough, and I don't know if you've seen JJ McCullough. His videos. I like culture.
Did he do the one on the history of the blue raspberry flavor?
Yes.
Okay, then I have seen it.
Maybe he did. I don't know if he has. But look him up. Look up a picture of his face. You'll see. Maybe I don't know if he did a blue raspberry. I said that immediately. Then I'm like, I'm not sure. Maybe he did. That seems like something he would do, but I don't know if he did that. But yes, probably. But like, I learned that a lot of candy flavors are like apocryphal, and that like fruits used to taste way different.
Yes.
And so like, it's still mimicking those fruit flavors from back then. But like, our bananas have completely changed.
Well, it's because the bananas that we based our banana flavoring on actually died to diseases. Because we clone our bananas. So if a disease wipes out a crop, it wipes out everything. They have no genetic diversity, so they can't protect themselves from it. So
well, there's still some, but like the ones we eat are a worse tasting banana. The taste only slightly tropical. It doesn't really taste that much like anything. And it's just because they're supposed to be like bred to be like, really good for monoculture and like disease resistant. And we have these big fields in South America where we destroy the rainforest and there's just these one plants, and it's super sad.
Biodiversity? Fuck that. Bananas for my smoothies? Those.
Yeah, man. Slavery is well and alive. Like,
it's also well and alive here. The 13th Amendment just moved it to the prison system.
Yeah. I don't like prison labor stuff makes me feel icky. I also don't feel like our prisons like actually like when people come out that they feel like less of a like they're going to be less of a criminal. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't
so
know.
the United States has the highest rate of recidivism for a reason.
Yeah.
Our prison systems are not meant to reform people. They're meant to institutionalize them and keep them coming back because they're free labor technically. Or it's
Well,
the
and also
cheapest
I
labor
think
we've got.
it's a very actually I would say it's a very unchristian idea that they prisons sort of based on of like well certain prison stuff if like you can't ever reform people and sort of like these people should just be kept away from the rest of society. And I don't know, like I think that's like 2% of Americans or 1% of Americans are in jail. Like it's sort of or prison. It's sort of boggling my mind to say like, yeah, 1 out of 100 of us, they're just not worth it. Like that's bonkers to me. You know
It
what I mean?
especially when you get a whole bunch of Christians and they quote Paul, and then you just kind of look at them sideways and you're like, you know who the fuck said that, right? You know who the fuck wrote that, right? The guy whose name used to be Saul. By the way, all of you anti-trans people who call Saul Paul, nope, I need you to keep that same energy. Always call him Saul. He could never change his name. Secondly, this is a guy who made his living torturing Christians and then got forgiveness and then became the person who was, whether or not Peter agreed with how he was doing it, different conversation, but he spread a lot of what we understand to be Christianity today from his own mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So you just kind of look at a bunch of Christians and go, so could he be forgiven? If they look at our prison system and say, no, people couldn't be forgiven for X, Y, and Z crime, and you just kind of stare, like your head is tilting further and further sideways as you listen to them basically say Paul could never be forgiven, because that's, for them to maintain that energy, that's what the argument would have to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the stuff with Nala. It's this poor girl, you know, she converted to Christianity. She left she left her whole life, her old life behind, and became a very different person. And like makes cooking videos. And you still occasionally on Twitter, you see all these right wingers like haranguing her and like harassing her and like attacking her because she's like appearing at an event or whatever. And it's just such bullshit.
See, the thing is, they're actually angry that they can't find her old porn videos. That's what they're actually angry about.
No, I think that's like an easy cop out. And like I know I always say as a trans person, oh my gosh, all the transphobes are chasers. But I think legitimately it speaks to a deeper issue in this country of a loss of grace and love and forgiveness. You know, I think if there's one thing our discourse generally needs, especially online, is love and forgiveness and grace. You know, and that doesn't mean we shouldn't have standards, but
it means we should be more willing to accept the stranger.
Yes. We should love the flawed person, you know, and you know, love the sinner, hate the sin, as they say, you know, of like when someone messes up and does something wrong, of like also like understanding they're a human being, you know, and stuff, and also be willing to like forgive when they change, you know. I don't see any forgiveness on the internet. I only see bitterness and hate, and it's so sad.
I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that people really like... So, people live in two worlds. They live in the worlds of celebrating, like, a morally gray hero, but at the same time, really, really adhering to black and white morality. They have a very, very binary way of thinking. And this goes for people on the left and the right, generally speaking. We're like, we recognize the value of a, quote, morally gray person. We celebrate morally gray individuals all the time in media. We do this for Batman. We do this for fucking Dumbledore from Harry Potter. We do this in everything. Tony's a yeah, it's a fucking mafia dude.
He has a family business. He's a good guy.
It is just a family business, you know? We have all of these effectively legends of characters who are morally gray, and we celebrate them, but when we look at our own life, we always want the moral right and wrong. We want the easy conversation. We want, okay, who's the, because I've seen this in my audience too, where I'll be listening to a video and people will just say, are we supposed to hate this person or not hate this person? And I'm just like, I'm not fucking answering that for you.
You're not supposed to hate her.
Like, I'm not answering that for you. I will say, listen to what they're saying. I may disagree with them. That shouldn't tell you whether or not you should, and you shouldn't use my disagreement with somebody as a judgment on them personally. Like, I feel like people really like the easy answers to things. So, for instance, to wrap everything back around to the original, purpose of the interview, I think people really like the easy answer to, trans women are men. Men shouldn't be in women's restroom. And that's as far as they'll think, because that's easy. It's more than anything, I think it's laziness. I think it's a form of laziness more than it is anything. And we can use that laziness to eventually end up leaning into cruelty. I think that's what happened.
Yeah.
But I think the big thing is people who just don't want to think. They want somebody to, they simultaneously want to tell people to do their own research and also want somebody to tell them what to think.
Yeah, that's actually so real. Like, that is a real problem. And I do think, not to be too overly charitable to the conservatives, but I do think that, like, the trans issue exists in, like, some sort of, like, abstract political sphere to them of, like, we shouldn't have transgenders in the bathrooms, and then we got to put a stop to this. But they never think, I don't think they think consciously, like, this means imprisoning these people, means putting these people in situations that they get raped. And, I just don't think the normal person thinks about that. Maybe the definitely more conservative people I've seen on the internet, like
Riley Gaines.
Like Riley Gaines, like all of these, like, honestly, you can tell what people really think by the no face accounts,
Mm-hmm.
Like, people on the left, okay, I don't want to say no one talks about Free Palestine. A lot of people talk about Free Palestine, but there's not a lot of, like, mainstream left-wing figures talking about Free Palestine. It's always the anonymous faces, because that's what people really want, but they're afraid to say it publicly.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with the right. The right, people are talking about, like, I don't know, just, like, stupid, like, like Elon Musk bill, his Doge stuff, where it's about cutting spending, but it's really leaving out the main menu items that are causing them overspending, and leaving out the under taxation. Those are, like, supposedly the priorities of the goth. But if you actually look at, what the people say when they have a mask on, there's a great quote: when someone has a mask on, they show you who they really are. And with all these, the big anonymous posting, 100,000 followers, anonymous posting people on Twitter and Instagram and stuff, they're saying what they really want, which is this is, very improper to talk about. I feel weird saying it, but it's a weird thing to say if you feel, it's such a bad thing that I feel, like, guilty even speaking about it. But they want to, like, get rid of, like, minorities, like racial minorities, transgender people, like gay people. It's so bizarre to me that they're, like, talking about, like, the white race, like this is escalated, this is getting worse. Like Mitt Romney wasn't talking about the white race, you know what I mean, man?
But Elon Musk has been, and a lot of people in Trump's cabinet have been now, and Project 2025 does, and, like, things have definitely escalated. The Overton window has shifted, and not in a way that is good or conducive to having a nice, stable society. I think the biggest dichotomy to always look at is most conservatives are very, very in favor of hierarchy. They usually just envision somebody who looks like them at the top. A lot of people on the left tend to not be in favor of hierarchy. They usually envision people who are very diverse, not at the top, but as a group, trying to do things collectively. And that's usually where you get, like, every conversation about capitalism versus socialism versus communism. It really just boils down to which side wants who at the top, and is there even a at the top in the system that that side wants?
Hmm. You know, and like conservatives these days, they'll defend the sort of they'll defend like the concepts that stem from the concepts, but they won't defend the original concepts. Like, you know, you don't see conservatives, well, you know, maybe privately they will, but you don't see a lot of conservatives on their talk shows talking about progeny, you know. But in order to believe that, you know, generational wealth is a good thing and the estate tax is bad, you have to necessarily believe in progeny and the idea that like intelligence is correlated with income, and that people who are higher income are sort of, you know, like the nobles and like the kings of old, you know, graced by God, and
They believe that you should be able to pass down everything. When you, I guess though, on progeny though, on the opposite side of things, you get a lot of people on the left who point out that, for instance, black families don't tend to have a lot of generational wealth because of redlining. Like that's one of the main reasons that led to that. And so they'll point out that you should have access to generational wealth for families that have been underprivileged. But then I think the step further is nobody should ever have to rely on generational wealth to have a happy and stable life. Like I think that's the final boss of all those conversations is, should generational wealth be advocated for? Yes, because there are underprivileged people who have been denied it. Should we advocate for a society where generational wealth grants power? Probably not.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing with, you know, I think a lot of the conversation with reparations for Black Americans is, you know, people look at a system where people who started off lower because of oppression, you know, are not able to rise up. And I think that the only problem with that system is that people started out lower, and not the fact that they don't even have a level playing field, and that people who are oppressed, you know, have trouble rising up in the American system. And then we're sort of getting, you know, as time goes on in America, we're becoming more like nobility, you know, the rich are becoming nobility. You know, when America sort of, you know, when we got this empty land, you know, and all these came here, you know, it was sort of in some ways a sort of economic start over, because, you know, British currency doesn't matter in America and everyone's sort of starting from where they are.
Yeah, like what's the difference between somebody inheriting Elon Musk's fortune and his companies versus a king inheriting the land that he's in, if the Musk family as a concept has enough political power and clout to effectively write laws, like de facto write laws? It powers. There's a I don't know if you've ever read the Dresden Files, but there's a,
I've heard. What is that?
It's a book series about a wizard in Chicago who is he's a private investigator, but he uses magic to do his private investigating, and his quote for himself is, "I'm the only wizard in the Yellow Pages." It's a very, very good book series, but there's a quote from that series that I think really, really resonates here, and it's, whether it's political power, financial power, or physical strength, they all are the same thing. They are all the ability to enact your will on other people. And within the book, the quote goes on to say that gives you a broader spectrum of choices. That means that you have a broader chance of fucking up. For purposes of this conversation, though, just having that extra power over people, whether it's political, like the Crown would have, or whether it's financial, like the Musk family or the Gates family would have, it's all the same thing.
One more disclaimer: we're gonna give a pass to Vivian. She's my friend. She's very nice. We give a pass to Vivian.
I can give a pass to Vivian. I actually would love to be able to meet Vivian, because Vivian's cool as fuck.
She's super cool. I chatted with her for a couple hours on Dead Domain stream once. She's super chill. We talk about the crowd. It's a long story.
No, she is fantastic, and actually the video that's done the best on my channel, weirdly, out of everything I've done, was the video where I was going over her dunking on her dad really, really hard on Twitter. Just talking, just literally sitting there celebrating, hey, this person who knows Elon Musk in and out is calling him a piece of shit in all of these various ways. This is fantastic. And apparently that's the content that everybody wanted to come for, which...
You can know a lot about how people are from their home life. By the way, Twitter, I forgot to share the link to this, and I kind of want to promote it on mine. Do you mind if I send me the link so I can because I want people who followed me to watch the stream, because you're cool and I like this.
I appreciate it. And if you want to, that's entirely fine. Let me go ahead and get that for you. At the same time, this is going to be going up as a video here in a couple days as well. If you'd rather share that one, since they'll be able to see that from the beginning. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Either or both. Also, Asina Salam, thank you for resubscribing. Said when you get to it later.
What did the chat say about the watermelon?
There was a 50-50 split between watermelon taffy's fantastic and ew, everything watermelon flavored in candy is horrible. There was a 50-50 split there. All right, let me go ahead and go here, and there's the link. I just threw it in our Discord.
Bet. Okay. Sorry, I should have done this earlier. I feel, but I was in a rush.
You're entirely fine.
Are you late to a lot of stuff? I'm always late to stuff.
I am always late. I am always late to everything. I was late to your own arraignment.
Yeah.
I am late to everything, and I hate it. The fact that there's a protest that's going to be organized in Tallahassee on the 11th at 7 a.m. in front of the courthouse. It's going to be wild. I hope to God I wake up in time for it. Considering that I'm traveling there in 6 days.
Yeah. You want to be awake for that. Yeah, I mean, I wonder if they actually do it earlier so people can't. Well, I think everything with court's always early. It's right in the morning or whatever. I don't want to be too uncharitable
it's that
towards them.
It's that way with everything in the legal system. When I had my court date for the insurance traffic violation, that was at 9 a.m. Anytime that I've gone to my local courthouse to sit in on the commissioner's proceedings, those are all happening at 10 a.m. It all happens early as fuck.
What are commissioner's proceedings?
So the commissioner's proceedings are anything to do with your city's zoning. So this is everything from how much money is the city going to be giving out of their... What's up?
You seem very locally politically involved.
Unfortunately.
Cool.
So I live in Marjorie Taylor Greene's district. So
oh my gosh, that's so funny.
I kind of have to be. When she was doing her rally, she called it a town hall, but it was really a rally, over in Cobb County, which, by the way, 10% of Cobb County is in her district, 100% of Paulding County is in her district. The fact that she chose not to have it in Paulding is very fucking telling. But anyway, when she went and had that, I live streamed the entire protest and also got to see all the people that she sent to jail from that protest. And we got to see the videos live as it happened, of the dude getting tased at the protest, and talk to the people who were involved in that. It was an experience, but I live too close to the shit that happens to not be at least somewhat involved. Anyway, the commissioner's room, all it is everything having to do with your city's municipal shit and zoning. So how much money is going towards the schools, how much money is going towards the police, whether or not a Chick-fil-A can get built 20 feet away from the McDonald's. All of that shit is handled in those meetings.
Okay, interesting. I used to be anti-zoning, but now I'm sort of pro-zoning is because I kind of like Europe. And how Europe and stuff, and I feel they're fancy because they have rules, and I don't like rules a bunch, but I understand that they're fancy because they have rules about ornamentation in buildings, which is super interesting because you can't I realize now when I was a kid, I didn't understand this, but I realize now you can't build a McDonald's in the middle of like beautiful France and just have it look like American McDonald's. Like that would be actually sort of harmful to others in a way of like, public. That's why they have public ordinances on that kind of stuff. But
I mean, that's why when you go to places like New York City, all of the fast food restaurants, all of the chains are located within other buildings, tacked onto a billion other businesses.
yeah, because they don't want to like have it be really crowded in the light or whatever and make it look ugly.
Yeah,
probably right.
The only the only restaurant or the only like big chain that I remember when I've the few times I've been to New York City, one of the only big chains that has like its own dedicated building is Krispy Kreme. But they've sunk a lot of money into that building. It's kind of insane.
Yeah, I feel like Krispy Kremes. I don't know if haven't gotten worse, but I feel like they've fallen off in popularity. Like you used to hear about them a lot more.
They used to be the thing that everybody would bring to school to sell so that they could do fundraising shit for, and now it's like, if I mention that I'm going to be going to get a fresh dozen at Krispy Kreme, everybody in my group is happy about it, but I feel like I'm the only one that does.
Yeah. Well, I feel like there's a lot less of them too. I don't see many Krispy. Maybe it's because I'm in Chicago, and they're less common here or whatever. But yeah.
Blarging 2000s in my chat just said, Tallahassee, you could come grab some candy from Lofty Pursuits. Oh shit, they are in Tallahassee, aren't they? I do need to go there. I love their channel. I love the Lofty Pursuits channel. That shit's great.
Yeah, I haven't actually seen that. I'll have to check them out.
They're a candy maker, and they just talk about the history of different candies as they make the candies from hand in their store.
That is so cool. Yeah.
So I guess I'll be stopping by there when I'm in Tallahassee in 6 days. I'll have to.
That sounds absolutely flippin' delicious. Yeah. What you said earlier about the rallies is super interesting with the conservative rallies, because you watch like, those, clips of Ben Shapiro owning people. It makes it seem like that it's like some fair debate or like that everyone gets a fair squeeze. But when I was confronting Riley Gaines at one of her events, and it was like, "Hey, your stupid law got me arrested," and I said my piece, and then she spoke, and they took the mic away from me, so I couldn't speak.
Yeah,
so I had to
you never have a fair shake if you don't have control over the microphone.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you don't. And so I had to she did some snappy, stupid ass comeback, and it wasn't a good comeback. It was just sort of something that would just seems like a quick. It's something like it's such a bumper sticker, new slogan kind of bullshit.
Wasn't it the "and I hope you go to jail" bit?
Yes. And then I wasn't able to respond, so I had to shout, and you can barely hear me in the thing, but I had to shout over the audience and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, we covered that a few weeks ago on my channel, and anytime you're in an auditorium where somebody else has the microphone, they have the power, and there's always going to be some type of filter that makes it seem like other people get a fair shake. For Marjorie Taylor Greene, I don't know if you've been to a town hall before, but it's supposed to be that you can get up and speak your piece to your representative to let them know that they're not representing you well. The town halls that I've been to before, like Nikema Williams' town hall, I did a whole Blue Sky report on, just going over hey, here's the people who gave their piece, here's the people who were pissed at her. She's a Democrat, and weirdly enough, it's all Democrats who are pissed at her, every single one of them. But for Marjorie Taylor Greene, she didn't take questions. She had the questions pre-screened, and then she read the questions she chose to respond to. That's not a town hall, that's a rally.
Ew. I never like when people read their own questions, because it's like they're asking themselves their questions. It's just, it sounds weird. Yeah.
Sometimes I get it. If you're a live streamer and you're just going, I have to read this to my audience for the audio-only listeners, that's entirely fine. When you're an elective representative, the constituents are there in the audience. Just ask somebody to raise their hand. They will, I promise.
Yeah. Well, I think you can just you have a right to talk to I don't know if it's just your mayor, but I think it's also your congressman.
You can talk to all of them. 5 calls. Five Calls has the phone numbers for every single elected representative in the United States.
I think there's one of them though where like I think it may be mayor that if you're especially in a small town, maybe not Chicago, but if you're in like a regular town size, you can literally just go in the mayor's office and you have a right to be there and like talk to people.
Yeah,
which is so fast.
I mean, you can do that with your representatives too. You just go to your state capital. If they're in session, they'll have, because I've done this. You can go to your state capital whenever your local Congress is in session. So this is everybody who's right below your House of Representatives. Your House rep may even be there that day too. It depends on the day. But you'll go there and they'll have a white piece of paper, and you say, "Hey, I need to talk to Representative such and such," and they'll hand you the piece of paper, and you just write down who you want to talk to, what time you want to talk to them, and what you want to talk to them about, and they will leave their session hearing and give about 5 minutes of their time to you to talk to you about whatever the fuck you want. And they do this all day. They literally are in and out of that hearing for hours talking with their constituents. So, like, you can do that with all kinds of representatives.
I always thought it'd be interesting after this. I've always wanted to move to Florida. I always thought it would be interesting to move there and to actually to run to be in the state house, the same place where I got arrested. I feel like that'd be symbolic. If I was ever to get into politics, that would be where I would start.
There would definitely be some poetic irony there.
Oh yeah, definitely. And talk to the same people who made the bill that I should be arrested. Definitely.
You just sit there having coffee with them. You're just like, so remember when I tried to take a piss and you sent the police after me? That was wild, wasn't it?
And you wrote the law that would make me. I mean, they did both.
Yeah.
Usually, people can sort of like put their guilt away and say, "Oh, no, I only did this part," but they did like the full shebang.
They did everything.
Yeah. And I know that the offices of the people who co-sponsored the bill aren't responding to calls or texts right now. They're not responding to messages, which after what happened, which is really bad. I don't really think I hope they don't have much of a political future. If there's Florida state representatives who see this, I will fly down to Florida and be in any ad. Well, maybe not once, maybe, well, I don't know. I would be in any, maybe you fly me down. I don't know. I would totally be in ads like against these people because they're like really evil. Like, I think it's super crazy. You know what I mean? I think them not even answering their calls is an admission of guilt in some way of like, oh, we fucked up,
I don't think it's an admission of guilt so much as it is, because like I can't be that charitable. I wish I could be that charitable and say that guilt was something that they thought about, but I feel like it's more evidence that they've been overswarmed with people disagreeing with what they did, and as a result of being overswarmed with that, this is just the end result. Like they have to shut off these lines. Because I had that happen when I went and campaigned for Jamal Bowman up in New York. I took a video. A photo was taken of me, Riverboat Jack, Vosh, and a Nominal Naomi, and a bunch of other creators. There's some fun fallout that happened from that. But that photo I posted on my Twitter, and it got like over 1 million views. And most of them were people calling everybody in the group pedophiles. And I definitely muted that. Not because I felt guilty or anything, but because there's only so many times you can hear that before you're just like, okay, I'm done. Also, the amount of people who were like lusting after Stacey K was weird. When I'm just sitting there like, so they're sitting there saying that what was it, Riverboat Jack and Nominal Naomi, they would point out and say, oh, well, those women are, those aren't women, those are trans men, those aren't women. And then they look at Stacey and go, oh man, that's a real woman, she's hot as fuck. And I just look at those comments and I just be like, they're all trans women, what the fuck are you talking about? All like, of them. Don't worry, you can always tell, I'm sure.
People sent me stuff from the 4chan archives about me, and it's like really, I might read it out. It's so fucking disgusting.
Go ahead and read it out. Like that's your trauma. However you want to cope with it is your business.
it's like, it's so, oh my god.
Ken Mark
Gosh,
says
it's
they didn't
so
expect it to be this much work, so they run from the responsibility. That doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me.
Okay. Okay, let me see. Okay, I'm trying to figure out. I knew how to search this at one time. But yeah, let me see. I posted one earlier, and then I like took it down because it was totally immodest, but it was kind of funny. I thought it was horrible but hilarious. What was the one I originally well, there's so many. I want to find that one actually because it was. Oh yeah, people were like telling me to kill myself. People are. Let me look back. I'm not like a regular 4chan. I did a Q&A on Reddit, and I also did a Q&A on the LGBT one on 4chan because people told me to go on there. People are toxic on 4chan. I regret doing that a little bit.
4chan was a mistake. 4chan's always been a mistake.
4chan was a mistake. Yeah. Oh yeah, people are telling me I make their cock hard. Where is the one I'm trying to find?
Man, people are bold when they're anonymous. Jesus Christ.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Okay, where is the one? Oh, this one made me laugh. It's like really gross, but it made me laugh. Marcy Rankin is extremely backshotable. It's why I feel so bad for her situation. Of course, I would support her cause if she wasn't. I just wouldn't feel as bad about it.
Jesus. I have never heard that term. Extremely backshotable.
Extremely backshotable.
Okay, sure. Then again, it shouldn't surprise me. So like my girlfriend's does OnlyFans. That's her income. And every now and again, I'll just see the DMs people are sending them, and I'm just like, wow, people say the wildest shit. Anyway, I'm gonna go make some coffee. You want some, hun?
Someone said, wish Marcy would treat me like one of her altar boys and grope me without consent, and then threaten me if I want to tell the authorities.
Jesus Christ!
Someone said Marcy was gooning in the bathroom. That's why she was arrested, which is not true. People said,
yes, you were gooning the rosary.
I'm trying to find this really horrible one because it's just like it's almost like it's so shocking to me that I almost want to like talk about it. Of like it's like so fucked up, but like someone was like talking like describing a rape fantasy of me. It's like
what?
Yeah, no, like of me being raped in prison.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't. Maybe I shouldn't show this one. It's like so. The stuff I've seen is like. I wish no one sent me. I wish no one told me about this. I mean, I knew 4chan existed, but I didn't. It's so weird to search yourself on Instagram or Reddit or whatever and like find like stuff of like I don't know. Yeah, like find people talking about you. You know what I mean?
I feel like
yeah.
So like if you're a content creator, you kind of get used to that being the case. Where like somebody will mention something about it. Like there's
Am I a creator now? I've gone
technically
I don't know what I am.
Like you've done the circuit. You've done the circuit with a bunch of content creators. If you decided to make content, like you'd have an audience. It doesn't like you're not a content creator unless you make content, but at a certain point, like you've got the notoriety. Fennec says, Suris fan art, we are not talking about the fan art section. We are not talking about the weird shit y'all cook up in my fan art section.
What's the fan art? Is it Rule 34 shit?
So you can actually find...
I know what Rule 34 is. I act innocent, but I mean, not legally. I'm not talking legally innocent, but like purity-wise.
So like
but I know
you can actually find my name on Rule 34. I was sent that a few days ago. So I know that that's a thing that happens with the weird people in my audience.
Mm-hmm.
Also, my audience requested over several years, and eventually they won out, me to have an NSFW section in the Discord where they could post that kind of fan art. So I've seen some weird shit. I
just got to have it in some way. It's
like I didn't know what a
Facebook exists.
I didn't know that there was a nipple
stuff.
plugging fetish until that was drawn of me. So
Nipple plugging?
Yeah, I've described what it is by using the words. I'm not looking much further.
Like with a CK or like plugging, like a
like plug, like inserted plug. That's what I said. That's what I said. I am not responsible for the weird shit that goes through these people's minds.
Yeah.
Sylvie says, the times I regret having Suris playing loud at max volume. Sylvie, you've been watching my channel for years. You know better. Fennec says, that's a new one. Yeah, new to you, but it hasn't been new to me. I saw that in that channel months ago. I'm still scared of it.
There's so many. I'm never gonna find this. This is the thing. You try to look for a post of yourself and you can't find it. But like people were like, actually, it's probably good I don't share it because I've already been pretty immodest just by sharing these things. Even though I'm not doing them, it's just other people saying things about me. But like people were like describing a rape fantasy of me in prison, which is like really, really disturbing. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not a very sexual person. Like I'm a virgin. I don't know if people know that. Yeah.
See, that's going to end up playing into some of those weird channers as well. The internet was a mistake, is all I'm saying. But
it's like Romeo and Juliet. It's like the 12th century. You know, I'm this eunuch peasant who's pure, untouched. You know.
YouTuber Grudge says watching Suris live without headphones is a terrifying prospect. Jesus Christ. But so the thing that's weird about all that, though, the thing that's weird is, can you imagine being the person that sends all of that to somebody and then you just screenshot that and then you hand it to their mother?
Oh my gosh.
Just like, your son and or daughter wrote this. Is this the kid you raised?
Yeah.
Like, I cannot imagine how that conversation would go. So, like, for those who don't know,
that's why I feel bad gooning to people. That's why I never goon to people. Because you think about it, like, I don't know, like, I feel like if someone, especially if someone isn't like, imagine, okay, say it's someone who isn't like making pornography and it's just like some normal chick. Like, I feel like gooning to her is deeply morally wrong, especially because, like, think about it. If it's just like
they're not asking for that.
Exactly. Like if you think about it, like, I feel like that's, I don't want to, it's not a form of sexual assault, obviously, like legally, but I feel like it's very violative. Like, that feels very wrong to me. Because it's like, think about it, like, imagine like talking to them later and be like, I masturbated to you. Like, that would be so weird to say.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that you tell your partner. You don't tell a random fucking person on the internet. That's weird. Yeah. Like, okay, so if somebody's on the internet, there's a reason why in the rules section for this Twitter or for this Twitch, I don't need you to sexualize me. I can do it myself. Like, there's a handful of artists who obviously, like, they can draw whatever they want. They can put it in the fan art section. That's neat. But if people start saying weird shit in the chat, I'll just go on a banning spree. And just like, no, we don't need that energy. You don't need to do that. That's weird as shit. That's a real person on the other end of the camera. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Wait, actually, I'm curious how they do the sexualizing art, because is it of your little picture or whatever? It
has been both, sometimes at the same time.
Because you did I haven't seen your face or picture of like you or whatever, but like, it's out there, right?
Yeah, there's plenty of videos. So like when I'm live streaming protests, I'm just there as myself. Like, I don't cover myself up or anything when I'm doing that, and I've got plenty of videos that are just me on camera.
the avatar is like an aesthetical choice. Then it's like a personal aesthetical choice.
There's a lot more history to it than that.
Okay.
So the
Explain the avatar.
Yeah, the short answer is my first YouTube channel that I dedicated a lot of time to years ago was about Hearthstone, the card game about World of Warcraft. And
I've heard of that.
I got an artist to make a rendition of effectively me, but dressed in Thrall's costume from the game, but chibi. Just a short, cute version of that. And that was my character that I used on that channel. When I started talking about religion and politics and other stuff that was important to me, I made another channel, and I took that avatar and I used it for this channel because it's what I had. Then, after some time, I want to say after about 6 months or so, I started getting gender-bent fan art of my character. And then at a certain point, there was more gender-bent fan art than not gender-bent fan art, and I don't know how that particular thing happened, but it did. And then I stopped using my avatar wholesale, and I started just using my camera, and it was because I was moving to live streaming. I was moving away from hard-edited videos, and I started doing more live stream content like what we're doing right now. And when
live streaming, in your opinion?
It's not that one's better or worse, it's that there's a particular... It depends on the content style you're going for. So you don't want to live stream doing a whole video essay. That's a nightmare, and especially as both you and I have gone down the ADHD tangents several times during this, it would be impossible to complete a project. But if you're reacting to the news, as an example, like you're reading off the news or you're doing interviews...
frame-by-frame reaction to The Dark Knight.
Like, stuff like that works really well for a live form stuff. And because I was already doing that, like responding to videos, listening to bad argumentation, like, here's a 10-minute video from Ben Shapiro about why being an Orthodox Jew necessitates you being a transphobe. I'll go, okay, cool. I disagree with that premise. I'd go and respond to it bit by bit, and eventually I just went, I can do this live. Like, I can do this live just as well as I can do it in edited form, so I moved to doing it live. But a bunch of people started commenting, saying, hey, we really missed the Avatar videos. And I know what they meant. They meant they missed the edited content where I used the Avatar, but I really like the concept of the monkey's paw. I really enjoy that concept a lot. So I said, oh, you liked the Avatar videos? You can have the Avatar videos back, don't worry. So I took all the gender-bent fan art people had sent over the years, and I found a VTuber model artist, and I sent it to that artist, and I said, make me a VTuber model based on these designs my fans submitted. And then my first VTuber model came out that way. And a handful of people were like, why is Suris using a chick model? And then the other half of my audience just went, that fucking tracks, we get it.
That's funny. Yeah, have you ever played the VR, the models in the VR?
Yes, I have a VR chat model. I've done that.
I don't have a VR, but my brother, who I only see, I'm like living, well, I shouldn't say where I'm living, but you know, I only spend a certain amount of time with him a year because of college and stuff. And so when I'm always with my brother, he has a VR, and so he like doesn't play with it anymore because of the same reasons that I have problems with it, of like
motion sickness. Okay.
No, actually, I really liked it when I first tried it. I had so much fun, and I would do VR chat, and that was the most interesting thing to me, VR chat, because it's like, this is a whole new mode of communication. This is super interesting.
I love VR chat.
Oh yeah. And it's sort of like, it's a new moment of communication, like how I personally have a belief that green texts are like a different form. It's like a different mode. I love the different modes created by the internet. Obviously, like everything that's in a green text, I usually hate most green text, but I think it's interesting, new mode of communication with the internet. And I'm very into like sort of, you know, the alt-lit, sort of, you know, the hyper online fiction, like Honor Levy kind of shit. But what the hell was I talking about? I had a point. What the fuck was my point? Oh, but VR chat, right? So VR chat, I went in VR chat and I started talking to people. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so much fun, right? It's VR chat, it's so much fun. And I was talking to people for a while. And then I was like, wait a second, because like I'm like a couple weeks later, right? Right. A couple weeks later, I was I was at a friend's house party, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that reminds me of that time at. And then I realized the memory was from VR chat, and that freaked me the fuck out.
Because you had a vivid memory of something that was happening normally, but it was effectively in a different environment entirely.
I was see. It's like masturbation. Masturbation's pretend, and VR chat's pretend. Because at the end of the day, the same way like when someone's masturbating, they're really looking at like a couple pixels on a screen and they're moving their penis, pretending they're having sex, which is kind of absurd and hilarious if you think about it. Like if you zoom out, masturbation's absolutely hilarious. You know, the same thing with VR chat of like, you know, my brain tricked itself into thinking I was talking to people. You know, I was talking to people, but I was at like a party somewhere. And like it logged that memory as a party somewhere. But I was in my basement wearing like a helmet.
It's yeah. So on that note, our brains don't really understand the difference between actual reality and virtual reality, not just in VR, but like in video games too. It's why like somebody who gets hit in a video game might say ow when that's happening. They're not actually experiencing pain, but it's a gut reaction. It's why you experience fear when playing a horror game. Nothing's actually going to happen to you, but your brain doesn't fucking know that.
Yeah. It's like those things from the 1920s where they had the two pictures and the goggles and they would wear it and they'd be like, oh my gosh, I can see 3D.
Yeah. Yeah, we still do that. We'll do like 3D comics that way.
Really?
Yeah, there's
with the goggles?
Where you'll have the 3D goggles that have the red and the blue, and the comic is made in such a way that the images will kind of pop up off the comic. It's not the greatest, and it makes the comic really suck to read when you're, you know, not wearing the goggles, but they do exist.
Huh. Do you do comics like that? Or
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
How do you know this about the comics? This is interesting to me.
So when I was a kid, I had a subscription to a few magazines. One of them was like, I think one of them was Lego Magazine, and it would come with separate things. Like I think, if memory serves, Bionicle. You got a subscription to Bionicle as well, and there was a whole subset of Bionicle lore that DC Comics made. And I remember one of those comics came with like one of the paper sets of 3D glasses, and there was like a couple panels where it was like, view this one in 3D. It looked awful. Like it looked kind of awful, but I remember doing this, and the only magazines I can remember having when I was a kid were Beckett Collector and Lego. So I'm fairly certain it was Lego that it came from, because Beckett Collector just told me that Yu-Gi-Oh cards were expensive, and that wouldn't have a reason to have 3D glasses in it.
Yeah. No, Lego, I mean, were their magazines free? I feel like they were free for like, so they can advertise, right?
I think so.
Which is super, I mean, that's super interesting. It's kind of like the Disney Channel, how they wouldn't have advertisements, but they would have advertisements. You know what I mean? But they're like, they would have all these promos talking about their movies, but they wouldn't be like, buy me this sock or whatever, buy this sock. But they would have some legitimate advertisements for like pillow pets or whatever. It'd be so well integrated into the thing. Have you watched the documentaries on Disney Channel and like how they would like subliminally get people ready for like their upcoming movies? Like before Nemo, they would like ask all the different people doing shows to have an episode.
I haven't watched.
Fish
I haven't
like insert.
I haven't watched the documentary for that, but I do remember. What was it? Zoe something. There was like a movie about a girl in a futuristic environment where everybody had their own like weird slang language, and I remember they'd bring the actors onto different shows, and then at the end of the show there'd be like a quick little 2-minute interview where they'd talk to that actor, and then they'd say, oh yeah, and by the way, I'm part of this movie that's going to be great. and then that movie would be showing on Disney in like a couple days or something. I don't remember where the actual movie was, but I remember seeing it like peppered around everywhere in the Disney Channel.
Mm-hmm. And it's like very subtle advertisement. It's like you don't realize you're being advertised, and then it's like, oh my gosh, they're selling me something. I mean, everyone's trying to sell you something these days. It's very sad.
Welcome to capitalism.
You know? Yeah, that's why I like the Tridentine Mass. Sorry if I'm like gonna nerd. I've nerded out so much, and like I know like most of my audience is trans and stuff, and I'm only basically on left-wing shows, and so maybe most I'm like a little bit of fish out of water, and that like I don't like I'm gonna be talking about stuff that people don't really think about much because it's like my own little niche thing. Because I'm not like I don't feel like my audience has like the same weird niche interests I do, but like I'm obsessed with like the Tridentine liturgy because it's all in Latin and I don't understand it, and there's smoke and it's weird and it's like incest and not incest, incense and stuff. And like I like it because it's not trying to appeal to me. Everything tries to appeal to me, and that's why I like the Catholic Church, is because it's so weird, and like we need things to be weird, you know, like we need to go back to things being kitschy and weird, not like everything's trying to sell you something these days. Like that's the problem with capital. Well, that's one of the many problems with capitalism is, you know, it can do some good things to a society, but it also kind of makes people depraved in a way. It's because it makes everything competition, go, 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 go. And, you know, you can't, it's hard to love someone when you're trying to beat them, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only good thing capitalism ever gave us was Pokemon.
Well, not the only good thing. I mean, don't you think you and I are a result of capitalism? Like our unique cultural upbringing was probably, you know, and we could say that that was itself evil, but we have nostalgia for it. Kind of like how people have nostalgia. Like, have you ever seen that stuff of people having nostalgia for different like authoritarian regimes in their country? You know what I mean?
I have seen a little bit of that where they're just like, I don't remember the bad parts about this. I just remember going to the park in uniform. Like, it'll be just some weird shit like that. Like and granted, I have that same feel. Like I went to Pensacola Christian Academy, which when I left, I found out that the joke name for that from every other public school was Prison Camp of America, because they were a hyper strict Christian private school. And it was the school that I grew up in, so I didn't have a concept of how strict they were until I left. And then I got to compare it against other public schools.
Yeah.
But while I was there, as an adult, I'm constantly thinking of moments from my childhood from when I was in PCA that are nostalgic to me, but I would never want to fucking go back there. The idea of going back there for like a video and just like showing off, hey, by the way, this is the place that stole several years from my life. Like, there's definitely a fun idea there, but in terms of would I want to go back there for any long period of time? Absolutely not. The fact that I have childhood friends that still try to convince me that the Earth is 6,000 years old is a direct result of them and their propaganda. So,
to be fair, I have like a medieval outlook, and that I want to, and I don't mean that like philosophically. I mean, my outlook is I want to live in the medieval ages. Like if I had a time travel, I would be like a peasant. And I know that's so weird because the peasants in the feudal system were like treated badly, but like I would like to
eat a diet of all potatoes, and you get to die of dysentery at 32.
That sounds like the dream. Like I want to be led. I want to be illiterate. I want it to be like really. I want to be like super. I don't want to know things. I want to be like. Yeah, you know why the sun goes down at night? Witches.
No, sir, the crop isn't coming in right now. Turns out the wolves came and they killed a rabbit. It's been very bad for the crops.
It's been very bad. I want to be, I don't know, I'm kind of already like that. And I'm like, just like, I blame things on like random things. So I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know, when bad things happen, I'm like, I wonder if, I don't know, like, you know what I mean? Like, I have that, I'm a little bit mentally ill in that way.
A bad thing happened. Is it because I stubbed my toe on the left side? Did that fuck up my chakras?
Yeah. No, I'm like, yeah, I just sort of, yeah, I'm very superstitious and like kind of, I don't know. I mean, demons are real, but like sometimes I'm like worried about like if demons cause things. I'm like, did demons cause this? I don't know. I have.
I don't agree with demons being real personally, but I'm also an atheist. That's probably why.
Yeah, I don't know. I probably should actually. It's probably bad as a Christian for me to not take demons seriously and just blame random things on demons like some sort of 12th century idiot. But I don't know if you've seen videos of like Annalise Michel or stuff like that. There are, I think, real exorcisms, and like they have like a psychologist now before they do it. It's super. I mean, at least interesting to watch just as horror. I don't know if you've seen the Exorcist Files. I love that like podcast. It's so good. It's like a horror podcast.
I have
Are
not.
you into horror? Are you into it?
I'm into horror, not into horror is like I'm a fan of a bunch of things in the horror franchise, but like a lot
Mhm.
of a lot of my favorite things end up being horrors. Like one of my favorite video game series is Resident Evil. I love Silent
Yeah.
Hill. I If you've ever seen Marble Hornets, that is
No.
so Marble Hornets is basically a modern Blair Witch Project. It is designed from the ground up by just a couple of college kids, and it is one of the best horror series I have ever been through, and I really want to do a stream on when Halloween comes around. I kind of want to do a watch party for Marble Hornets on stream. The problem is that it's like 108 episodes. A lot of them are like 30 seconds long, but still, it's Tales of Atonement says Origin of Slenderman. No, Origin of Slenderman is from the Something Awful forums. The villain quote antagonistic force in Marble Hornets is the Operator, which has a lot of similarities to Slenderman, but is not Slenderman. The creators of it specifically have pointed out that the Operator and people's idea of the Slenderman are different things. They're very tied together. Hi, honey. How are you doing? Did you get a shower?
No,
Oh.
I'm gonna get in the shower.
Oh, I was like, yeah, you just walked in with a towel. Hi, hon.
Yeah.
Just random cameo from my girlfriend Saki. I'll take it.
Yeah. I- those sound good. I've heard so much good stuff about Silent Hill.
I will give you the way to experience Silent Hill. This is so what you want to do is you can do this on an emulator if you want to, but you want to play the original PlayStation 1 version of Silent Hill. And you want it to be just one of those things where you've got headphones on, you've got the lights off, everything is basically just your senses are cut off to the world except for this game. And you specifically want to be playing the American version of the game. Don't play the version they released in Europe.
Okay.
This can be done via emulator, via methods I can't talk about on stream. But I would highly recommend it. There's a lot of things that are censored in the European version, so just don't play that one. It's a different experience, and it's not as good.
Okay. Yeah.
Naki3 says why US specifically. I can tell you why, because something about the rules in the European release for the game, something about their rules prevented you from seeing dead children. And the European release nixed an enemy out of the game because the enemy was based on dead children. And that enemy exists in the English version of the game. The enemy makes zero sense in the European version, makes perfect sense in the English version, or in the American version.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never played that. I want to get into like flash game emulators. Like there's this one cool Yoda game I heard John talk about one time, but I also don't. I have like zero time in my life. You know what I mean? I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't I want to really scare myself. One time, okay, so I'm like most people. This isn't like the main thing I talk about, and I want to like pivot my TikTok and Instagram to not always, because I am at the end of the day, I'm sort of a, I may be a political activist now, but I'm sort of like a victim of political circumstances in a way, and that like think I'm naturally, super duper political person.
It's a thing where it's not your passion, it's your circumstance.
Yeah. And so I would love to talk about writing, because I love to write on my typewriter, and I'm sort of a method writer. And so I like to get myself in the emotions my characters are feeling. And so I would like, have you ever heard of The Caretaker or whatever?
I don't think I have, no.
Oh, it's like really, really scary music. The chat will tell you about it. It's really, really scary music. And it's like, it's being weird because it's being used in some YouTube shorts now, but it's like, it's written sort of inspired by The Shining, but it's supposed to simulate Alzheimer's. And that like, if you listen to it, it slowly degrades. It's like 6 hours, and it like slowly becomes unrecognizable, but you can still recognize it, even though it's just like white noise almost.
Oh,
like,
I think I have heard about this. Okay.
It's super, super duper spooky stuff. And so I would listen to that in the dark in the attic of my church, because I like to hang out at my like local Catholic center or whatever. And so I would listen to that in the dark, and I would just have the light on to like see my typewriter, and I would just be typing, and it was so scary. Like I would actually I would drive myself to like because I'm I like to be in the like emotion when I'm doing the art, which is writing, and so, like drive myself to like actually cry. Like I'm here.
I mean, it makes sense.
Like, yeah, I was so in the moment or whatnot. Yeah. 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 I don't know. Yeah. When you do you do any form of art or like creative expression? I mean, I guess this is, but like any other way or whatever.
So I've got a few things. I've done some writing. I'm a fan of the Sonic the Hedgehog series. So I did a whole writing experiment on how would the story of the series. What's up?
You did Sonicho, right? That was you.
Absolutely not. No, that person raped their mom.
Sorry, that was a terrible joke.
But so I did a short series on what would happen if Shadow the Hedgehog died in Sonic Adventure 2 and stayed dead throughout the story of the series. That was fun. I've got a secondary channel where I just talk about Magic the Gathering, and that is what takes up a ton of my time, where I'll just get into, here's the story of the cards, here's the deck that I'm working on, here's how to do this on a budget. That's where a lot of my creative expression comes in when I'm doing that. I also do a lot of 3D printing projects, but that's not really art expression so much as that is just like doing things that are technical.
And like design the prints or whatnot? No,
that's the thing. That's why I said it's not really an artistic expression. It's more of a like, there's a problem in the house that a 3D print could probably solve. Let me find a 3D print that solves the problem. Which is not really a creative expression at that point. Yeah. Tales of Atonement says dabbling in voice. I guess, yeah, I guess voice acting would be considered. I guess that would also be considered artistic expression, because I have done a few paid voice acting gigs.
Wow, that's so cool. I want to hear about that. How did you do that? Also, quick observation. I've noticed, and this is just me like thinking now, like, you ever notice that like boys who like Nintendo tend to be more left wing than boys who play Xbox or PlayStation?
That's because people who grew up on Nintendo had friends, and people who grew up on PlayStation and Xbox had COD lobbies where they called each other the Arsler as a form of as a form of pastime.
Well, they call it things than that, but we're gonna clean up those things.
But no, I don't know if there's actually a correlation there. I'm not 100% certain. But I if I were to take a guess, I think it would probably be the existence of the COD lobby would be where that's coming from. But with the voice acting stuff, I used to do some singing. I got trained for singing a while back, and I used a lot of the lessons from there, a lot of the lessons in vocal control, in order to go do some voice acting gigs. So there's a video game that's coming out soon called Overton, and I'm the lead role in that video game. Tales of Atonement
Wow.
has a comic series, and I play a wizened old wizard effectively in that series. And then there's a few other things that I've done paid voice acting for, advertisements for other VTubers for their characters, like background story. And there was one person's OCs that I've done. I did a bunch of voice work for one of their original characters for one of their stories. So there's been a few things spattered here and there that I've done, but it's nothing major.
Wow, that's like super cool.
I appreciate that.
I'm getting voice training right now from Seattle Voice Lab, so hopefully I'll be able, not that I'm in Seattle, it's like on the internet, but hopefully I'll be able to control my more eventually, just to like make it like better, because it's like you kind of forget like to do it sometimes and it's a problem, but that's like super duper cool and interesting. Yeah, like that's super cool that you get to do that or whatever. Like it's super neat.
I mean,
I feel like I don't really reveal too much of my personal life from before that like can be like sort of like used to find out more information, because like the turfs were like posting pictures of my family and stuff, but like I actually used to be a disc jockey when I was in high school for the high school radio. Welcome to the WGC 88.3 FM. Yeah, the Riken Radio Show. Yeah, but I did that. That was fun. What I really like.
What's up?
Sorry, you go. You go.
I was gonna say I've actually only had, I think, one other friend who's done DJing before, so that's actually a really unique trait. I'm not even gonna lie.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah. Huh. It was a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
But then what were you about to say?
I know, I forget now. See, I'm sorry, I'm always interrupting. I have like an interrupting problem. Like, I don't know, I'm very Aspergian and very ADHD. But I shouldn't use that to excuse my behavior. But I feel like
I was about to say, I think it's probably the ADHD. It's probably the ADHD.
Right.
The idea pops into your mind and you're like, I have to get it before it leaves. I have to talk about the idea before it goes to the miasma.
Yeah. Well, I've actually been looking into a lot of the causes of like stuff like OCD and ADHD, and like Asperger's and stuff. And I've seen a lot of evidence that a lot of this stuff isn't purely genetic, and that like the EPA isn't doing good enough job to like regulate like the chemicals that are in stuff, because like these corporations, they put like mercury in stuff these days, and it's like really like messed up because a bunch of people have mercury poisoning, which is really crazy. I don't know if you've ever like gone down like the like corporate, well, I mean, everyone's gone down the corporations being evil rabbit hole, but like the stuff that's in our food and stuff and like in our products is so toxic to us.
Yeah, there is some truth to there being an amount of environmental pollutants that can cause, not can cause, but can be a thing that helps cause ADHD. But from what I've been able to see without looking at a ton of the studies, mind, is that it's not really mostly environmental factors.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. I haven't really looked at the studies, so maybe I'm just being ignorant and just spouting off, and if I am, I really apologize. It's not even a statement about ADHD or Asperger's in particular. I just feel like I've seen a lot of stuff of like the charts of like the rates of cancer and stuff like that. And like we're like all these products that we have are like really toxic for us. Like these corporations sell us stuff that's like so bad for us and toxic. You know what I mean?
What's up?
Like I'm just saying like you know what I mean? Like that, like all these like things that just generally are becoming more toxic, which is sad.
Yeah, I think for ADHD, a lot of the research has been around PFAs, which are chemicals that last a very long time and don't break down very easily. And that's one of the things that seems to maybe be a contributing factor. But a thing to always note is you always have to be careful about correlation and causation, you can
Yeah,
have
that's true.
you can have two things that look like they coincide with one another, but do not necessarily have a causative link.
Hmm. That's true.
So
Yeah.
I, it's an area where I don't have enough expertise to speak on.
Me neither. I probably shouldn't be speaking on it. But I guess it's just like a general vibe I have where I'm just pissed off about pollution and like how it affects because I think it affects people in a lot of ways they don't even realize, you know?
Oh, like so for instance with I'm in the process of trying to get screened for ADHD. I very likely have it. Who knows? But I'm in the
Hmm.
process of trying to get screened for it. I told my mom that I was in the process for it, and I'm 33. So when I went over to her house and said, "Hey, this is the thing that I'm going to go try to do," she just went, "Yeah, there's no way you have it. I would have known." Would you though, Mom? Would you? Like, are you a like?
Hmm.
Did you become an expert in diagnosing ADHD? I don't think you did,
Yeah.
so I don't think you'd know.
Yeah.
Renegade says one of Veritasium's new videos talks about one of those forever chemicals and how one company secretly poisoned the planet. I watched about 8 minutes of that video. I haven't seen all of it yet.
Yeah. But yeah. Yeah. I've heard, I mean, the FDA is just now I don't know if it was during Obama or during Biden, but like they finally like cracked down more on mercury.
Mm-hmm.
But like a lot of like the Republican presidents or whatnot, like,
Well, they're all for deregulation usually, so it's harder to crack down
well,
on shit with them.
they're worse than just for deregulation. A lot of these people come right from the boards. They should have some sort of like thing that like same thing with military contractors, with the military industrial complex, that you shouldn't be able to like be on a board or like and then be the chair of like the FDA or like the Department of Defense, because that's like so icky. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Somebody in my comment section, when I made a comment about medication making somebody who's trans making their brain feel right, they just went, it doesn't make their brain feel right, it makes their body feel right. I'm just gonna be a very quippy asshole and respond counterpoint, the brain is part of the body.
Yeah. And also, like, I don't know, this is something I've talked with other trans women before, of like estrogen having an effect on my body, yes. But I think it's also like it has a like it works better with like it meshes better with my brain. Like I think that's a real thing. You know what I mean?
I mean,
Yeah.
we did a study years ago on cadavers of people who identified as trans, and we found that a majority of the time the cadavers that were pulled up that identified as trans, like they were born male and identified as female, irrespective of
Hmm.
if they had gone through hormone therapy, their brains had a higher amount of, I believe it was white matter, and
Hmm.
the opposite was true for people who were trans masc, people who were born feminine and identified as male. They had a higher amount of gray matter in their brains, which is it. The reason that ended up being interesting is cis males have a higher amount of gray matter in their brains usually, and cis females had a higher amount of white matter in their brain usually. So even like it makes sense that it would mesh better with your brain because the chemicals your brain is composed of, or the matter your brain is composed of, is literally aligned that way anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's the brain scan stuff and like the brain matter stuff. I didn't know about the post mortem studies they do on dead people, but the brain scan stuff is like I always say that, at the end of the day, it's like a condition like any other condition. Having gender dysphoria, it's like a real like physical thing. You know what I mean? And I feel like I don't know. It makes me sad when people like say like trans isn't real or gender dysphoria isn't real. It's like that's so crazy because I don't know. It feels like such gaslighting. It's like all you experience not real. You know what I
It,
mean? It drives me crazy.
I think for some people it is a form of gaslighting. It makes
Hmm.
sense. For other people, I think that they just don't know because I
Yeah.
have a lot of friends who are conservative who,
Mhm.
without a trans person explaining their situation to them, they always kind of default onto those, well, no, you're not. how would you know? That's not a thing. And it's usually because they don't experience those emotions, so they kind of
Hmm.
internalize that and then project that onto everybody else around them.
Yeah.
The worst ones, though, are the people who feel like they are trans, throw that into the closet, and then tell everybody else they're not trans afterwards. Those people are
Hmm.
wild. One of those people
Oh
watches
yeah.
my channel and comments all the fucking time. It's wild.
Yeah. Well, there's like this. I think there's like this person like Mr. Emily or something on Twitter. It's like this like trans woman who doesn't believe that like transgenderism is real, and they're like,
Mhm.
no, I'm just a mentally. I'm like, honey, you gotta stop with the self hate, and they'll like attack other trans people to be one of the good ones. And I do want to, I do believe in nuance. I believe, to a degree that if someone counter signals the trans community, it's not always because they're a pick me. Surprising amount of cases it is, but there can be genuine discourse in the trans community, and I think actually the trans community would benefit from real, like, actual sort of discourse and sort of, you know, I feel like because of all the persecution, a lot of people are afraid to like actual like in the trans community like actually sort of have a discourse about what it means to be trans, and because we have to be in all solidarity or whatever, but which we not even whatever it's we need to be all in solidarity. But I feel like it'd be good to have that kind of discourse. But I feel like a lot of the people who have it typically are not having the right discussions, and they're typically like incredibly like pick me. I want to be like by conservatives, and
They want
I
to
mean,
be the
I
next
want
Blair
everyone.
White.
Yeah, I don't know. Blair White. Yeah, I don't even feel like she's. See, I have such mixed feelings on her. If I disagree with her heavily, but I don't. I wish she didn't get the hate that she got, but also like she's doing it for pick me reason. See, I have so many mixed feelings, but I don't agree with her philosophy. But see, I don't like to talk mean about people on the internet generally, even if I disagree with them heavily. But I disagree with her philosophy. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, but oh, you know what? One person I am mad at
Hmm.
though, I got beef with is Amy at Basic Chanel on Twitter, because she's like she's a pick me, Matt. Oh my gosh. And it's like the old pick me's were interesting, of like, what, we'll sacrifice here, some sacrifice there. They at least had some sort of like they had some sort of dignity to what they were doing, even if it was less how they treated themselves. But like the pick me trans people now, like will like talk about how they're EGP and like accept that whole premise, and like talk about how like, yeah, like is it like they would like call themselves perverts and stuff, and it's like, oh my gosh, like what's wrong with you? Like people shouldn't be entertaining Michael Knowles. Shouldn't be like it's bonkers to me. You be like talk about like transgenderism should be eradicated or not, like it's a normal conversation. It's just not. The fact that stuff like this is said by people is absolutely bonkers crazy.
The bonkers thing to me, and this is one of the last things we have time to talk about,
Mhm.
but
Yeah, of course.
I think the bonkers thing to me isn't that Michael Knowles said that. He's a right wing mouthpiece. He's gonna say
Mhm.
provocative shit. That makes sense to me.
Oh yeah.
The thing that makes less sense to me where Knowles is concerned is that he can say that and then people can listen to it and then go, well, that's not calling for genocide. If I said we need to eliminate Christianity, at what point would my actions start necessitating the elimination of Christians? Because not everybody's going to deconvert if you start that campaign.
Yeah.
At a certain point, eliminating Christianity requires eliminating the Christians. And then it
Mhm.
requires eliminating the literature about Christianity. And at a certain point, you just look at those parallels and go, okay, so we're already eliminating the trans literature. So,
Mhm.
and we're already trying to eliminate the ideology. What happens when that ultimately fails? What's the next step? The logical next step that happens, Michael. Not just for Michael, but the people who are just the people who have argued against that being an argument for genocide.
Mhm. We know what the logical next step is. Yeah.
The logical next step is looking for a solution. You know, Gemini, I didn't fucking ask.
It's crucial to clarify.
No, I didn't fucking ask.
Especially through coercive.
I didn't fucking ask. Stop. I will break this phone.
Destruction of a racial, ethnic.
That is so cool. Shut the fuck up, Google. What?
Does it not turn off? Is it not like a button?
How
does it?
Not with. So I had to unlock my phone to get to it. The problem is, so I have a Motorola Razr, so it's a flip phone technically.
1,000 pizzas.
And when it's in flipped mode, there is a pause button, but that button got obscured by the giant paragraph of text that it wanted to voice to me. Gideon says everybody expects the Google Inquisition. Gemini now knows Suris wants to cause a genocide. Jesus Christ.
I feel like of all the places in the conversation, that was probably one of the more weird places for it to go.
Like, I'm so... Thanks, Google. Now you have data on me talking about genocide. Neato.
Well, they always have data, you know.
They're always
watching. Palantir's always watching. Always watching.
Remember, Alex Jones hates government surveillance, but when Trump does it, oh my god, it's patriotic.
Yeah, does he say it's patriotic? Is he defending that?
Alex Jones is defending Palantir, yes.
Wait, what? Wait. Oh my gosh. Wow, he's a sellout.
He is.
Jeez.
He is.
Is he really? Wait. Oh my.
Yeah,
That's so sad, actually.
Here, I'm going to go ahead and throw that at you real quick. Just so you can watch that later.
Okay. Oh my gosh. But he's supposed to, he's like going against his whole shtick. It's like so hypocritical, like insanely.
His whole shtick has always been making money. I used to be an Alex Jones fanboy. His shtick is making money.
Really? Okay. Yeah, this is so shocking to me.
Like,
oh my gosh. I don't know. It's just like, not that I think political actors are above selling out or whatever, but it's sort of like when I saw Riley Gaines selling ivermectin, and like, I don't know, I saw that and I was like, listen, I got personal beef with Riley Gaines. I love everyone, but I don't like some of the things she's done, to say the least. I don't like to speak mean about people, but I don't like the things she's done, to say the least. And the same time, seeing her sell ivermectin was like legitimately shocking to me, because like you always have a point where you're like, people won't go there, and then like you're like, wow, people will go there. That's crazy.
That's when you realize the issue has been money. Like the point was money all along.
Yeah.
That said,
that's why Chloe gets a couple million a year.
That said, I do want to go ahead and thank you for your time. I appreciate you coming in and giving
my socials.
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead.
I enjoyed this. It's at Marcy Rankin on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Yeah, I also have Blue Sky and YouTube. I don't really post on them much. I post on YouTube some, but I gotta post on Blue Sky again. MarcyRheintgen. MarcyRheintgen. Yeah, that's them.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time, and I hope everything goes well when we are all together in Florida.
Yeah. I hope everything goes well with the protests and everything. Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Alrighty. Well, you have a wonderful rest of your day. Hopefully, it's not very stressful.
Yeah. Yeah. And come to my protest, y'all. I hope y'all have a great day.
Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really could not do any of this without all of you. Those of you watching, and especially those of you who support me on Patreon. I wanted to go ahead and take a minute to thank all of you who do that, because with YouTube being what it is these days, I really cannot do this full-time without the support from each and every one of you. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Tales of Atonement, Nixie-chan, Kiri Artemis, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Leela Uraraka, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. Thank you so very much. But since you're here, why not go ahead and try watching another one? There should be one that's on the screen right now. And if you are a patron of mine, I wanted to go ahead and thank you again for all of your support. There is still a video you could press though, if you'd like. I would appreciate it just a little bit.